host of 180, Steve Savant.
Well, welcome everyone. I'm Steve Savant, and we're broadcasting live from the heart of Phoenix, Arizona on KXXT Family Values Radio. And I also want to welcome our online audience on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And I want to give a big shout out to Beyond Fear to Freedom, one of the best Christ-centered fellowships that provide a safe and loving community for women in recovery. Just check out their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And if you're not doing anything Friday night, while you're out there checking their website, look at the address of the fellowship where they're going to be every Friday night from 5:30 to 6:15, food, fellowship, and childcare is provided. And then great message at 6:15. They have a message for the men, a message for the women. It's just awesome. And if you've been listening to this story all this week on Tracy, we'll get that in a second. Boy, I tell you, if you're saying, hey, I've lived that life, there's a lot of people that live that life as well, and you're looking for a new life in a new way, these gals could escort you and meet the God that has created everything, including your new story and the destiny that you should be on. Hey, and listen, if you want to write me, please feel free to do so, Steve at 180uturn.com. That's Steve at 180youturn.com. And I'm happy to return your emails. And again, I just so appreciate the uplifting things you guys say to me, and the scriptures are just usually so timely. It's awesome. So thank you for that. Well, all this week we've been with Tracy Kovach. Wow, Trace, day 4. We call it Holy Thursday on the show, right? Finally, we get to talk about how in the heck did you get converted, right?
Yeah.
I mean, oh my gosh. So you're sitting there. We ended yesterday's show. When you're in the prison, they're not going to give you any transition meds if you're an addict.
Yeah,
you're going to have to ride this out cold turkey.
Yeah.
And so they don't really care if you want to sleep it off, and you slept it off for 3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks straight.
I mean,
so
that's probably making up for all the time. I don't even know if it could possibly make it up, but it's making up for that time. So you woke up out of your Rip Van Winkle experience, and then what?
One of the guys in the pod had asked me if I wanted to go to a church service.
How did that hit you?
I was like, go to a church service for what? I'm going to talk to myself because I said I was God, right? So I'm like, dude, I ain't going to no church service. He goes, well, come on, man, we're in maximum security. And he's like, well, let's just get out of our cells and we'll just go to church. I'm like, yeah, whatever. All right, let's go. So we go to the church service. Mm-hmm. I didn't go there to find God or Jesus. I always said I was God, so there was that wasn't even a possibility. I heard Christians are judgmental, hypocritical, and all this stuff, and so I didn't want nothing to do with Christians. But everybody always told me what they thought the Bible said, when I know now today that they never read the Bible, because if they did, they would have never told me the garbage they did. Mm-hmm. So I go to the church service, and there was a guy there, and I'm gonna plug him today, Don Brandt from Church on the Street.
Sure.
He an older gentleman, and he was doing a message. Now, mind you, I'm just coming there to get out of my cell. I'm not. I don't care about Jesus or God. Care about the Bible, nothing. He was talking about. He had a prayer written out on a piece of paper, and there was a blank in the prayer, and he was talking about dealing with giants in your life. And in the prayer was the blank, and it said dealing with the giant of blank in my life. And he goes, fill in that blank, whatever that is. So here I am. I hear Christians are judgmental, hypocritical. So I raise my hand, trying to be a smart aleck. Raise my hand and I say, "What about the giant of me, man?" And he was like, "That's perfect. You put that there." And it had thrown me off because I always heard, I was waiting for him to come at me all sideways with something judgmental or hypocritical. Here I am, the guy in the pod with all the tattoos, and but he didn't. He came at me with love, and it just shut me up and made me listen to him start reading the Bible, which really got me. I was like, what in the world? My whole life, I spent my whole life on purpose trying to find this clarification in life that I didn't think existed, trying to figure out where I fit in the world, and there was more to life for me, and maybe there isn't because my life is too messed up, so I'm just going to get mine where I'm at, and I'm just going to become the worst of the worst, and that was my whole thought. I was on purpose looking for this clarification in life, and when he started reading out the Bible, it just hit me so hard. I was like, that was like information I've been looking for my whole life, and I didn't know. I was like,
well, let me ask you this. I'm just curious, because I've had this experience about 3 or 4 times, especially over by 4th Avenue, because there's a lot of other seedy things going on a couple blocks away. And I usually park down and walk through, and I'm going to get hit up by hookers. You're going to be, hey, and I'm trying to dress down because I'm going to 4th, right? So I don't want to look like I know what I'm doing.
Right.
So and if I came to you at that time of your unbelief, and I said, hey, if you believe something to be true, but it wasn't, when would you want to know? Would you think you would have heard me out, or you just flip me off and tell me to go?
Probably flip you off.
Okay.
I mean,
so we say we're open,
Yeah.
right? But maybe we're not as open as we would think,
Right.
But in jail, somehow, this guy's talking to you.
Yeah.
And did I mishear you? This is maybe your first contact with the love of God.
it is.
Oh my gosh! Well, this guy's golden then, in my
Yeah.
view. I mean, this guy's not only sharing
Yeah.
something cool, the giants in your life, but this guy's projecting the love of God.
Yeah, what it was when he started reading out the Bible,
Wow.
and I started hearing that it was actually like information and not just some holy book, and it was very good information, like what I had looked for my whole life. That's what got me. So I ended up going back to my cell that day, really contemplating what the heck just happened. You know, I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm like, I want to know more about whatever he was just reading. Who's got a Bible? And I remember the same guy that invited me to church the first time, he comes in my cell and he goes, hey, because I was thinking in my head, I want to know this God I said was never there. And I'm living in a cell with a white guy, and I'm running the pod for the whites. I got all these prison tattoos on me, and my reputation precedes me and all that. So it was very unlikely that was going to happen to me. And that was the last thing I ever thought of would happen to me. And that same guy comes in my cell and goes, hey, if you want to know this God you said was never there, and he handed me a Bible. He goes, you need to hear it from him yourself. You need to read this. Well, I mean, I couldn't read that good. I never read, because I never went to school. So, I mean, I just couldn't read that good at all. So I was trying to read the Bible, and I couldn't. And Don would come and visit me, and Jim Carper, also from Prisoner Hope Ministries.
This is one-on-one.
This is one-on-one visits. They were doing trying to minister to me and help me figure out.
Oh, yeah, let me just stop you there.
Yeah.
I have nothing but serious respect, not only for people who go into prison and jails to just share the Lord and so forth, but I think it's way hard. Tank orders, one-on-one counseling sessions, people who spend time, and I know what it's like to sit in Durango for 23 tank orders in a row and burn through the day and not eat, you don't understand the impact. He says, well, Steve, I can't preach. Well, I don't need that. Steve, I need you to lead Bible study. No, I don't need that either. I need you. Can you do one-on-one? If you're retired like I am and you're looking for a ministry, you will never, ever run out of people to talk to that need lot. So I'm all over these guys who did one-on-one with you.
Yeah. So they started telling me that if I just, that when I read the Bible, first of all, when I open the Bible, just pray and ask God to give me his wisdom and knowledge. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I'll do that because I'm trying to figure this out. I would get so frustrated and throw my Bible across the room because I couldn't read. And I would read a paragraph and forget what I read before. It was just very frustrating. So they kept coming and ministering to me. And the guy in the pod, the Christian guy that took me to church the first time, he would be ministering to me. We'll be reading the Bible together. And mind you now, I'm the same guy. He comes into my cell, the same Christian guy, and I cussed up a storm. I mean, every other word out of my mouth was the F-bomb.
Right.
And he come in my cell one day, and he goes, hey, why don't you cut out your cuss words and see what you got left to say to anybody? And I was like, okay. And it worked out great because now I wanted to know who God was, and now I didn't talk to anyone for 5 months after that. I actually spent 5 months in my cell, staying away from people and trying to read my Bible. And I remember praying and asking God, I want to know you, God. I want to know if this is even real.
What is the hunger here? I mean, up until for the last 3 days of this show, it's the resume from hell.
Well, right. Well, I had thought, the last thing I ever thought of was Jesus. I mean, the people in my past life would try to sell me crosses that were made out of gold with diamonds in them, and I'd punch them in the eye, tell them I am God. Don't ever bring those crosses or talk to me about Jesus. I had friends tell me later on, after I got converted, friends tell me, I tried to talk to you about Jesus, and it got ugly, and I don't remember this, but I was way out there on dope. But
you guys started doing, shocking, you guys started doing pod meetings.
Yeah, start doing Bible studies, prayer circles. I'm just
in maximum security.
In maximum security.
I love it.
Yeah, we were called prayer circles before we went to bed, and before they lock us down in our cells, we'd all hold hands and pray. I remember just telling God, "I'll do whatever you want me to do, God. I see you now. I'm like, I want to know you."
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I spent that whole 5 months reading the Bible over and over. I read the Bible. Now God taught me how to read and who He was at the same time. So it was just amazing. So
what about the whole thing about the racism? What happened there?
Man, so this is where God was dealing with me and my race. Two of the biggest things in my life that God wanted to purge out of me was racism and be called names. And when you're in a prison system in jail, punk is the worst. So, I mean, that's just like an unwritten, someone calls you a punk in jail and it's you have to fight. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at, whatever. And racism, those were the biggest things in my life. So I remember praying and telling God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. God, I see you now. And I remember God tell my heart, I want you to go in a cell with that black guy and live with him. That's your brother. That's my child. And I was like, oh, man. Now, here, mind you, now, I'm looking at the rest of my life in prison. I was broken, and now I'm like so on fire for God at this point. And when I hear God tell me that he wants me to go into this cell with this black guy, I was like, okay, well, here we go. And I thought that I was going to die now and go see God, because I thought, okay, this is how God was going to not give me a life sentence. I was just going to die and go see him, right?
Yeah, now when the officers are observing your evangelistic run into this guy's cell, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're completely blown away.
Blown away. They don't even know. I'm blown away, because that's the last thing I ever thought I'd be doing is, first of all, talking about Jesus, and then second of all, going into a cell with other races like that. I mean, I'm in a 2-man cell. It was unheard of. The rule in the jail by the people that were running it on the inmate side was you don't cell up with blacks, especially people like me. I got all this, my life.
Your history.
My history. It's against the rules. It's like.
Well, I'm laughing because you now are reading your Bible to your black roommate, your cellmate, right? Your cellie.
Yeah.
Astonishing to me.
Yeah.
And he's okay with it.
He's great. I mean, when I walked in the cell the first time, because God got me to that cell, because I remember conversating with God and saying, you know what, all right, God, I hear what you're telling me, but I'm in the cell with the white guy. I'm on fire for you. If that opportunity ever comes up, Lord, that's what I'll do. And I remember we complained about the food, and God will get you where he wants to get you, whether you like it or not. And we complained about the food. They said I incited a riot, and they took me to the hole. That was when I went in the cell with the guy. And I remember the Holy Spirit telling me, you're going in the cell with a black guy now. What are you going to do? I remember what you said. And I was like, I remember what I said, that I would do that, Lord. And when we got to the hole, I looked in the cell, and sure enough, it's a black guy. And I was like, and the cops they were laughing, because I was supposed to fight these cops and not go in that cell under any circumstances. So I just looked in that cell, and they opened the door, and I hugged that black guy, and I told him, I love you, man. And it's like, what? Why you love me, man? I go, because Jesus says I got to love everybody. Brother, I'm starting with you.
Oh, wow.
They just like looked at themselves and shook and scratched their head. And
what a awesome thought, because I'm just thinking about how a lot of times the Lord will do the very opposite thing you want. And on top of that, not only that, but that you're like confronted immediately. Hey, I talked to you. Oh, yeah. And now we're going to do it.
Yeah. So now, I wanted to know God at any cost. And I remember having a conversation with God after I read the Bible over and over again. And I asked God, I said, Lord, I want to know if the God of the Bible is real. I don't want to just stand in faith. I want to know if you're real, Lord. And God, I remember God telling my heart, you want to know if I'm real? We're going to go on a journey right now. And the first place we're going is in that cell with that guy.
Mm-hmm. So, and was he a Christian?
He was a Christian, yeah.
Wow. So, and did he receive your love of the Lord?
Absolutely. This is just me, but I truly believe that man was an angel. I truly believe it. He was an older black gentleman, and he was very awesome, very humble, very amazing, just amazing. I believe he was an angel.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to exhort all of us, listen, this is the day, especially in our society today, where identity politics seems to rule the roost. I have found if you want to try to dismantle racism, it better be at the prison level, because if it can happen there, if God can fix you in prison, he can fix anybody. It's, I'm sorry, the prison is the laboratory of the Lord. And to me, those are where all the experiments happen, and he's the only one that can make it happen. Listen, when we come back for the break, we're going to continue more on Tracy Kovach's astonishing conversion story, and I exhort you to hang in there for the rest of the segment. I want to pick up the lunch. I want to pick up the lunch thing. Skinner.
Okay. Yeah.
Like-minded women gather together to share a meal and their stories, how they broke the destructive cycles in their lives by the power of God and moved on to a new life in Christ. For more information about Friday nights, just go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. If you can't get to BFF on Friday nights, or you don't live in the Phoenix area, you can stay connected by joining BFF's Subscribe Tribe, where you'll receive their weekly study guide, so you can track with them online. Just sign up today on BFF's website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. And don't forget to listen to BFF's weekly video podcast with Debbie G and Sheridan. Their own life experiences and their biblical influence will overhaul your thinking, your identity, and your future. They'll keep you encouraged with some great insight and biblical truth. Just friend them on Facebook or go out to their website at beyondfeartofreedom.org. BFF, where you might just discover best friend forever.
Well, welcome back. I'm Steve Savant, and you're listening to 180 U-Turn with Tracy Kovach as our special guest. And we're on Holy Thursday, which we euphemistically call because this is the day of conversion. And sometimes, in Tracy's case, I'm so anxious to get to Thursday's show because it's been so bad. You know, we lived lives that are, in my view, the ultimate human tragedy. I mean, really. Heroin and meth addiction, that alone, if that all you did, that would carry the day from a complete story and a blockbuster testimony. But the whole issue of the jail time, the prison time, the thievery, the robberies, everything else, you know. But I go back, and again, if you haven't seen the show at the front end, the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show, you should watch it in succession. I'm not a bleeding heart liberal, but I can tell when somebody's been affected by a terrible and rotten childhood. It doesn't give us license, doesn't make it right. It just says I understand it. And after being in prison for 16 years, 1,600 chapels later, listen, let me tell you something. I've seen some people that have some horrendous childhood experiences. Tracy, yours did. Now, racism, that's kind of gone the wayside, right? The Lord's, when he comes in, you know, whatever isn't of him is going to be pushed to the side.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got to say, you got a lot more than just loving them. I mean, how did you deal with your family? I mean, you know, I love you, Dad. No, I don't. You know,
Yeah.
How did that go down?
Well, I mean, I hadn't seen my mom or dad for
Years,
many, many years. And I had this hatred. I hated their guts. I wanted, you know, like I said before, I wanted them dead. But when I was reading the Bible and God was talking about forgiveness, and I never realized that this hatred, that all the stuff that I was doing in my life was this hate and rage I had against my parents in my heart, until God revealed it to me, and I actually forgave my parents for real in my heart, and it was like 1,000,000 pounds lifted off of me.
Wow.
It was like I realized at that point that all of this hate and rage that I was taking out on the world and myself was this hate and rage I had against my parents. So it was like very liberating when I.
When you're inside, you get a lot of time to think about these things.
Oh yeah.
So part of that is kind of somewhat therapeutic, right?
Right.
When you're going through there, it's often, most of the time, there's really not a lot of love lost between the officers and the inmates.
Yeah, never.
Right?
Yeah.
But you had a couple guys here that were kind to you.
Yeah, there was a black officer. His name was well, I'm not gonna say his name, but there was a black officer that was. The police started moving me from pod to pod because they were putting me right in cells with blacks, and I was just walking in and hugging them. The rule in the jail was any white boy that cells up with a black gets beat up or stabbed or jumped or whatever. I used to be one of the guys that enforced that rule. So when I'm doing it, now the officers, they don't know what's going on. They're tripping. They think I'm on some kind of mission, or they don't know what I'm doing. And they start moving me around all over the jail and putting me right in cells with blacks, trying to get me beat up or stabbed. Nobody's doing anything to me because God says in the Bible he'll put fear and confusion in man's hearts. So I wanted to know if God was real, and God would show me how real he was. I remember when they put me in one of the cells with these blacks, and I was on my knees praying and just asking God, I know I'm going to get beat up as soon as these guys come get me. And the Holy Spirit told me to stand up and look out the door. And I stood up and looked out, and they were pushing each other towards my cell. And I could hear them talking, saying, go tell him he's in the wrong cell. And this one guy goes, I ain't telling that big old dude nothing. You go tell him he's in the wrong cell. And I told my cell, come here, look at him. He goes, what are they doing? I go, they're trying to figure out who's going to tell me I'm in the wrong cell. Nobody ever came and told me I was in the wrong cell. And that was God showing me that he put fear and confusion in these men's hearts to keep me safe. So, and I was just on fire. So I'm doing the prayer circles, Bible studies. Everywhere I went, I was just living in the cells with brothers. Some of the best people I ever lived with, mind you. Some of my best friends now today. The officers started tripping, and this one officer asked me, Kovach, why are you selling up with blacks and nobody else will? I go, because I'm following Jesus. I go, if it kills me, I'm following Jesus. He goes, I don't understand it. I guess I'm just going to have to live with it. This other officer, he's coming in, another black officer, he's coming in and he's going, man, I love what you're doing. He's throwing me sack lunches in my door all day long. Right. I'm like, okay, cool.
which is a odd thing because they're usually on a tight budget.
Yeah.
No, your lawyer came in. He wanted you to do a plea, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you take that, or did you say, no, I'm going to the wall on this?
Well, I mean, there was lawyer after lawyer, prosecutor after prosecutor. God was just messing up their case so bad. They were trying to come up with stuff, and there was just all kinds of things going on. In that 14 months I was in the county jail fighting my case, the lawyer actually wanted me to take, they finally brought it down, and now they're just, I mean, the case was so messed up, they didn't know what to do. So they actually came at me with a plea agreement and said they'll give me 2 years, but then they tell me they're going to charge me with the meth lab in a chop shop. They already had a case number, and I'm like, what? Well, why are you even talking to me about a plea agreement? You might as well just charge me with that, and we'll do it all at the same time. So I told him, okay, well, I'll tell you what. And mind you, I'm praying the whole time, and I'm getting direction from the Holy Spirit. I'm fasting. I fasted for 6 days straight, no food, no water, which I don't recommend that for anybody. So, but I ended up taking a plea agreement for 2 years, and then going to the prison yard. So now God could have just opened the doors like he did Paul and Silas and let me go, but he wanted me to spread the love of Jesus on the yard in front of all the people that I knew.
And what yard was this?
First yard I hit, so I'm on my way to Douglas. I'm praying and asking God to put me on a good yard with a lot of Christians. We get halfway there at a stop, and they tell us, well, we're getting rerouted to Fort Grant because a storm just wiped out Douglas and all the power's out, so we have to send you to Fort Grant. I'm like, so I'm going to the hole is what I'm thinking, because all my history, they're like, no, you're going to the main yard. And I'm like, well, no, everyone else will go to main yard, but I'm probably going to the hole, right? I got STG, security threat group, and all that. So no, I actually went to the main yard on Fort Grant. I was praying with everybody, praying with the officers, praying with everybody everywhere. One of the officers didn't like me praying with everybody, and he complained about it actually to the captain. The captain called me in his office one day and said that he got a call from the gang task force on the street that told him that I was the leader of a militia, white power militia group, and I belonged locked down in Florence. The captain said, you know what? All I've seen this dude is pray with people. He's staying on my yard. But then, because the officer complained about me praying with everybody, they moved me to Kingman prison. So, yeah. So then
that was pretty awesome, though. I heard that.
It was great. I loved Kingman. It was great because I mean they had every program where I was at with my spiritual walk and just trying to just on fire for God. Instead of taking over the yard for the whites like I normally would, when I got to the yard, they're like, hey, Tracy Kovach's here. You're going to take over the yard. And I was like, no, man, where's the church? And I'm like, what? Why? Church? What about the church? I'm like, I'm going to praise the Lord, man. He saved my life, and I'm following him forever. And I actually got a lot of respect for that from the guys that I used to know. They're running the yards. So
because they know who you were.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now you've been a Christian, what, about a year now?
About a year,
this
yeah.
time?
Yep.
Okay, so got your nose in the Bible without question.
Without question.
Go into fellowship with like believers.
Yep.
People that are hanging
all day long, every day.
Birds of feather flocking together.
Yep.
And you're starting to put away the behaviors, right?
Yep.
I mean, hey, it's a long time. It's hard to change when you've been living a certain way.
Yep.
So those things are all going on the wayside right now.
All of them. So for me, God changed my heart immediately overnight. I quit cussing, smoking, drinking, all that stuff. Like overnight, God, I had no cravings or nothing. I didn't want to beat people like I wanted to before. I wanted to love on people, everybody. But I felt especially I wanted to love on other races, especially because those were the ones that I hated most of my life. And that's just a mission that God had put me on.
Did they receive you as authentic?
They absolutely did. So it was great. So I mean, I remember one of the guys that when the guy that was running the yard about half the time by the time I was there halfway, he came to me and goes, "Hey, you see that white guy over there?" I'm like, "Yeah, what about him?" He goes, well, he wants to know why you're over there, this guy with white power and swastikas and all this, and with your reputation, why you're over there hugging black guys. I'm like, okay. I go, what'd you tell him? He goes, well, I asked him if he had a TV. The guy said, yeah, I got a TV. Why? He goes, you want to keep it? The guy goes, yeah, why? He goes, because if you make that dude backslide, he's going to beat you up and take your TV, I guarantee it. Because I just beat people up just because I could in my past life. But now I'm not trying to beat up nobody. I'm trying to just follow the Lord. But again, God was showing me His grace and His mercy and His protection and keeping me safe from all that. And at the same time, allowing me to minister to these guys.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, I just really appreciate the Lord's ability to change a guy in a 24-hour period. The Gospel of Mark uses this phrase immediately so many times in that gospel. And I like sudden impact stories where bang, we were this one day and the next 24 hours overnight. I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
I love overnight shock and awe. Well, listen, don't forget to go out to beyondfeartofreedom.org and get all the information on Friday night. And so until next time, I'm Steve Savant. And remember, no one's outside the reach of God. No, not one.